Welcome to Health Simplified. Today, we're really digging into something that sparks a lot of debate. Red meat.
It definitely does.
We've gathered some interesting findings on what it is and how it impacts our health, and our goal is, well, to unpack this information together.
Yeah, try and figure out what's most crucial.
Exactly, without getting bogged down in, confusing or contradictory advice.
Uh-huh.
So, when we say red meat, what exactly are we talking about? What's the definition?
Right. So, essentially, red meat refers to the muscle tissue of mammals.
Mammals, okay.
Yeah. Think beef, veal, pork, lamb, mutton.
Hmm.
Even things like venison and goat fall into that category.
Yeah.
But it's important to draw a line here. This definition, it specifically excludes poultry, so chicken, turkey, and game birds.
Right, no chicken.
No chicken.
Huh?
And also not offal or organ meats. They have different nutritional profiles altogether.
Okay, that's a helpful clarification.
Yeah.
Now, it feels like public opinion on red meat has shifted quite a bit. Are we actually eating less of it these days?
Yes, there's definitely a noticeable trend, at least in some places. Like the BBC food source mentioned a decrease in red meat consumption in the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one study they cited showed a drop of nearly 14 grams per person per day between 2008 and 2019.
Wow. Why is that happening?
Well, it seems like several factors are at play. There's increased awareness around, environmental impacts.
Sure, the environment.
And animal welfare concerns are definitely influencing some people's choices. Cost is another one.
Yeah, red meat can be expensive.
It can be. And then, of course, there's just this widely held perception, really, that red meat is generally bad for your health.
That unhealthy label is certainly persistent. But when we look at the actual nutritional content, is it really all negative?
Not at all. Actually, no. Red meat offers some pretty significant nutritional advantages.
Like what?
Well, both BBC Food and MD Anderson, they emphasize its role as an excellent source of high-quality protein.
Okay, protein.
Yeah, typically delivering around 30 grams per 100 gram serving. And the high-quality part is key.
What does that mean, high quality?
It means it provides all the essential amino acids our bodies need but can't make themselves.
Wow, the building block.
Yeah, exactly, the building blocks. And it delivers them in a good, usable ratio for building tissues, maintaining them, producing vital messenger molecules, stuff like that.
Okay.
And this is particularly crucial during periods of rapid growth, like childhood and pregnancy.
Makes sense.
Now, you can get all these amino acids from plant-based diets, absolutely.
Right.
But it often requires a bit more conscious effort, combining different sources like legumes and nuts to make sure you get that complete profile.
So protein is a major benefit. What else does red meat contribute nutritionally?
Well, it's also a very good source of iron, specifically heme iron.
Heme iron. Okay, what's special about that?
That type of iron is much more readily absorbed by our bodies compared to the non-heme iron you find in plants.
Ah, easier for the body to use.
Exactly. And iron, as we know, is fundamental for making red blood cells, which carry oxygen everywhere.
Super important.
Very. Now, you can get heme iron from poultry and seafood too, but red meat is a particularly efficient source.
Got it. Anything else?
Yeah, red meat also provides valuable amounts of zinc, good for immune function, wound healing, and vitamin B12.
B12, right. That one comes up a lot with vegan diets.
It does, because B12 is critical for nerve function and making red blood cells, and it's primarily found in animal products. Deficiency can be a real concern for vegans, so they often need fortified foods or supplements. The NHS actually recommends that.
Okay, that's a good overview of the nutritional pros.
Mm.
But let's dive into the health risks we often hear about. The connection to cancer, for example. Where does that stand with the scientific evidence?
Right. This is definitely a complex area. And how you interpret the research findings is really crucial.
Okay.
So back in 2015, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, that's part of the WHO.
IORC.
Yeah, IRC. They classified red meat as probably carcinogenic.
Probably. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Well, the important thing to understand is the basis for that classification. It was based on what they called limited evidence.
Limited evidence.
Yes, primarily pointing towards an increased risk of colorectal cancer. But, and this is key, the IRC also noted that other factors could potentially explain the associations they saw.
So not necessarily a direct cause and effect.
Exactly. They couldn't definitively establish that based on the evidence they had at the time.
Limited evidence is a really important nuance there. What about the link between red meat and heart disease? That's another major concern, often tied to saturated fat, right?
You're absolutely right. The saturated fat content is a key part of that discussion. Red meat does contain saturated fat,
Hmm.
and higher intakes of saturated fat have been linked historically to increased levels of LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol.
Which can increase heart disease risk.
Correct. Plus, cuts of meat that are high in saturated fat are often higher in overall calories, too,
Right, potentially leading to weight gain.
which is itself a risk factor for various health issues, including some cancers. However,
There's a however.
there is. More recent research, like the stuff highlighted by BBC Food, suggests that the overall quality of a person's diet,
The whole picture.
exactly, and the extent to which foods are processed might actually have a more significant impact on cardiovascular health than just the presence of red meat alone.
Interesting.
Now, this isn't like a free pass to eat unlimited burgers,
Right, definitely not.
but it emphasizes that moderation within a balanced dietary pattern is likely more important than just zeroing in on one food group in isolation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not just the type of meat, but also how we cook it, isn't it? I remember reading something about high temperature cooking being an issue.
Precisely. Yeah, MD Anderson points this out. Cooking red meat at high temperatures, particularly above, say, 300 degrees Fahrenheit, like with frying or grilling.
Barbecuing.
Yep, barbecuing. And especially with prolonged cooking times, this can lead to the formation of compounds called heterocyclic amines, HCAs, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs.
ACAs and PAHs. Okay, and those are bad.
Well, some research suggests these compounds can potentially damage DNA
Oh,
and may increase the risk of certain cancers. PAH, in particular, can form when fat from the meat drips onto the heat source, the coals, the flame.
right, creating smoke.
Exactly. And that smoke then deposits onto the meat's surface.
Ah, okay. So what's the alternative? Lower heat.
Generally, yes. Cooking methods using lower temperatures like baking, broiling, but maybe not too close to the heat source, or even sous vide, are considered less likely to produce these compounds.
That makes sense. So the preparation method seems to matter quite a bit. What about processed red meats? They often seem to carry an even stronger warning.
Yes, and generally for good reason. Both MD Anderson and BBC Food are pretty clear on this.
What counts as processed? Bacon, sausage?
Yep. Bacon, sausages, hot dogs, ham, deli slices, jerky, things like that. They are associated with a higher risk, especially for colorectal cancer.
Why is that?
It's thought to be primarily due to the processes involved: smoking, salting, and often the use of chemical preservatives like nitrates and nitrates.
Ah, the additives.
Those seem to be the main contributors to the increased risk. So generally speaking, the less processed a meat is, the better.
Okay.
Plus, processed meats are also frequently high in sodium and saturated fat,
Double whammy.
kind of, which further links them to an increased risk of heart disease and stroke. So current expert recommendations generally advise people to significantly limit their intake of those.
Right. Cut back on the bacon and hot dogs.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, this paints a somewhat cautious picture overall. However, I feel like I've also seen some more recent studies maybe suggesting red meat isn't quite as detrimental as we thought. What's the story there?
You're right. There have been some notable reviews of existing research that have presented slightly different conclusions, causing a bit of a stir.
Like what?
Well, for instance, Healthline reported on a pretty rigorous review. They used something called the Nutri-RECS guidelines.
Nutri-RECS.
And they looked at a huge amount of past research, randomized controlled trials, observational studies, millions of people involved.
And what did they find?
Interestingly, their analysis found little to no statistically significant or important association between typical levels of red or processed meat consumption and the risk of heart disease, diabetes, or cancer.
Really? Little to no association.
At average consumption levels, yes. Based on this, the Nutri-ICS panel actually suggested that most adults in North America and Europe could probably continue their current average consumption levels.
Or just how much?
They estimated it around 3 to 4 times per week.
Okay.
However, they did acknowledge that some small reductions in risk were observed in the really large observational studies they looked at, so it wasn't entirely clear-cut.
That's quite a different take from the IRC classification. But then I also saw that big study published in Nature Medicine. What did that one find? Did it agree?
The Nature Medicine study.
Yeah.
Yes, that one. The burden of proof study was also very comprehensive. Looked at tons of reports, over 2.4 million people. They found what they described as weak evidence of harmful associations between eating unprocessed red meat and several health outcomes.
Weak evidence this time. For what outcomes?
Colorectal cancer, breast cancer, ischemic heart disease, and type 2 diabetes.
Okay. How weak is weak? What kind of risk increase?
Well, the estimated increases were relatively small. For instance, they found at least a 6% higher risk of colorectal cancer in the groups eating the most compared to those eating the least.
6%.
And notably, they didn't find evidence of an association with stroke either type.
Interesting. So what was their main conclusion?
Their overall conclusion was that while, yes, there is some evidence suggesting increased risk, it's generally weak and not strong enough to warrant major changes in dietary recommendations for most people. And they really emphasized that more robust research is needed. They also highlighted just how much variability and uncertainty there is within the existing data.
It sounds like there's still a lot of ongoing research and, well, fair bit of uncertainty in this whole field. Why are the findings so varied? Is it just hard to study diet?
It's incredibly hard. The Nature Medicine study itself pointed to several reasons. A huge issue is that most dietary studies are observational.
Meaning they just watch what people eat.
Essentially, yes. Researchers look at existing eating habits and health outcomes over time, but it's super difficult to control for all the other lifestyle factors, exercise, smoking, overall diet quality that could be influencing those health outcomes.
Confounding factors.
Exactly. Plus, there can be big differences between studies and how they're designed, how they even measure what people eat, which is often relying on memory.
Right, trying to remember everything you ate.
Yeah. And the populations being studied can differ too. All that can contribute to different results. The Nature Medicine study also hinted that the relationship might not be linear. Maybe the risk doesn't just keep going up steadily with more meat.
You mean like it plateaus? Or it depends on what else you're eating?
Potentially, yes. It could vary depending on the level of consumption and maybe what foods red meat is replacing or being eaten alongside. It's complicated.
It really sounds like it. So, given all this complexity and, frankly, conflicting information, what are some practical guidelines or recommendations we can actually take away? It feels like the advice keeps shifting.
It can feel that way, but despite some of the newer, maybe slightly contrarian research, the general consensus still leans pretty heavily towards moderation.
Moderation, the classic advice.
It often is. For example, MD Anderson dietitians, they recommend limiting cooked red meat intake to no more than 18 ounces per week.
18 ounces cooked. Okay, how does that break down?
Well, they suggest maybe spreading it out, perhaps 2 9-ounce servings or several smaller 3-ounce portions across the week.
Got it. What about UK advice?
BBC Food pointed to the UK government's advice, which is to limit red or processed meat to a maximum of 70 grams cooked weight per day. That's about 2.5 ounces.
So smaller daily amounts, potentially.
Yes. And both sources really agree on the importance of choosing lean cuts whenever possible.
Trimming fat.
Trimming visible fat, yes. And using those lower temperature cooking methods we talked about.
Right, less charring.
Exactly. And they also strongly recommend substituting processed red meats, the bacon, sausage, etc., with other protein sources whenever you can.
Like chicken, fish, beans.
Perfect. Incorporating things like meatless Mondays or just consciously choosing poultry, fish, or plant-based proteins instead of red meat in some meals. Those are really helpful strategies.
Small changes.
Small changes can add up. And as MD Anderson notes, eating red meat occasionally is likely much less of a concern than consistently high intake over the long term.
Okay, so the overarching theme really seems to be mindful consumption rather than complete avoidance for most people. And it sounds like it's all part of a bigger picture, right? Overall healthy eating.
Absolutely. That came through loud and clear from all the sources. The fundamental importance of a well-balanced diet that really emphasizes plant-based foods.
Fruits, vegetables.
Fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, whole grains. These foods are packed with nutrients, offer a huge range of health benefits. And maintaining a healthy weight through a balanced dietary pattern is also just crucial for reducing the risk of so many chronic diseases. Red meat can fit into that, but maybe not as the main event every single day.
Right, it's about the whole dietary pattern, not just one food.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean? The truth about red meat, well, it seems pretty nuanced, doesn't it?
Definitely nuanced.
Recent research is adding complexity to beliefs that maybe felt quite settled for a while. While red meat clearly offers valuable nutrients, like that protein and iron.
The B12.
And B12, yeah. But potential risks, especially with high consumption, process types, and certain cooking methods, they just can't be ignored.
No, you have to weigh both sides.
So the key takeaway really seems to be moderation and making mindful choices. Focusing on leaner cuts, less processed options, varying your cooking techniques.
And doing all of that within the context of a balanced, maybe more plant-forward diet overall.
Exactly. Which sort of raises an important question for everyone listening. How does this information impact your own dietary choices? What further questions do you have about nutrition and your health?
Yeah, it's worth thinking about personally.
We definitely encourage you to explore the sources we discussed if you want to dive deeper, and consider how these findings fit into your own personal health goals. Thank you for taking the time out to listen to our deep dive. Until next time, stay healthy and stay informed.